our eschatology, which comes from the Quran, allows us to understand the three stages, or the three parts of the shadow, the three stages of a big shadow, which was Pax Britannica, becoming a ruling state, and then Pax Americana succeeding Pax Britannica, and that these things are not happening by accident. They're part and parcel of a three-stage plan to deliver to Israel the status of a ruling state in the world, so that the Antichrist can stand up in Jerusalem and declare that he is the Messiah. This is our eschatology. And our eschatology is almost the same as the Christian eschatology. The Jewish eschatology, of course, is that the Messiah never came. He's coming now for the first time. So there's some slight difference between the Christian and Muslim eschatologies with the Jewish eschatology. But we recognize that we are now at that point in time when stage 2, or Pax Americana, is in irreversible decline. This is a macro analysis. And a new ruling state will have to come to replace Pax Americana. And in my book, Jerusalem in the Quran, which I wrote about 15 years ago, I argue that the successor to Pax Americana will be Pax Judaica, that Israel will take claim to become the new ruling state in the world. The passage to Pax Britannica as a ruling state could not take place without a monetary system being created in which the sterling pound was the international currency. And then the passage from Pax Britannica to Pax Americana could not take place without a demolition job on the British pound and its replacement with the US dollar. The US dollar first supported by Bretton Woods and its redeemability in gold, and then after 1971, the US dollar becoming a petrodollar. And now we're now arguing, Maurice, that stage 3 cannot take place without another monetary system emerging to replace the current US dollar-dominated monetary system. And it is not just the US dollar which will have to go down the road, but also the euro. The biggest trump card that the European Union has at this time, giving it power in the world, is the euro. And so the long-term implications of a British exit from the European Union would be that it's not just the US dollar which would be in irreversible decline, but also the euro, in order to make way for a new monetary system, which will be one currency for the whole world. And that one currency, of course, will be electronic or digital money, controlled by a banking system, which it's also controlled by European Jews, Zionist Jews, not the non-Zionist Jews. And so my macro analysis is that the British exit from the European Union, if it does take place, is meant to pave the way for a new monetary system to emerge, which will replace the existing monetary system.
So in a sense, it is to create a collapse of the economy so it can be replaced with the new digital economy.
That's right. That it's not only the US dollar which must go down the drain, but also the euro.
I see repeated reports of warming relations between Russia and Israel, often from Sputnik, the Russian news agency, but also from public figures. And I wonder how seriously you take this and what repercussions there are, given Russia's involvement in Syria. And perhaps you could also comment on Russia's activities in Syria.
I'm happy that you raised that subject, Maurice, because there are lots of people, particularly in the Arab world, who are confused. They're confused because They're getting reports from the media in Russia which indicate a warming of relations, a close relationship between Russia and Israel, and that seems to be incompatible with the other view of Russia as a Russia which is standing up to the Zionists. The fact, Morris, is that Russia is a complex society. There's a very powerful Zionist presence in Russia. And the Zionist presence is also present, the Zionists are also present in the media. And they use the media to do all the possibly they can do to brainwash people into believing that Russia is a great friend of Israel. I don't think it is correct to say that Russia is a great friend of Israel, because the Russians are not fools. They know that Israel was actively involved in preparing the Georgian armed forces for the attempt that was made in 2008 to inflict a serious wound on Russia. Russia, which had emerged from the collapse of the Soviet Union and emerged out of the Boris Yeltsin years, the chaos. The Russian armed forces were in disarray, and the Western world used Georgia to test Russia. And Israel was up to its neck in involvement in Georgia. And the Russians responded to that attack from Georgia by delivering a profile that we're not afraid of you, and we will not hesitate to use power. And they used power, and they used it courageously, and they used Chechen brigades. Muslims were at the heart of the Russian armed forces, which defeated the Georgians, okay, and gave them a bloody nose. The Russians are not fools. They know what Israel did in 2008, and they were able to teach them a lesson. So what the Russians are doing, I believe, is at the level of state-to-state relationship, they are maintaining a polite relationship with Israel, yes. But that does not mean that Israel is an ally, not at all. There's no reason for Russia to adopt a hostile policy towards Israel. No. Look at how they've responded to the Turkish embarrassing apology. They reacted to the Turkish shooting down of the airline, the Russian aircraft, very, very strongly. But as soon as the Turkish leader apologized, okay, there's no reason why we should not have good relations with Turkey and mend defenses. This is the foreign policy of a very mature country, showing very great wisdom in its conduct of foreign policy. So I am not surprised by Russia having respectable ties with Israel for the purposes of realpolitik. Yeah. That does not make Israel an ally of Russia, no.
Regarding Russia's activities in Syria, namely their bombing the opposition forces, you see this as a good policy?
The Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, prophesied that the Great War will take place in that area, the north of Syria, north of Iraq, or there. And so it is possible that events are going to escalate, and that eventually an event will take place which will provoke an escalation in hostilities, and the Great War can commence right there in the north of Syria. The Russians have had to intervene in Syria. There was no way they could prevent it. They had to do it. But they also had to intervene in Syria in such a way that they could sell the intervention to the Russian public opinion. and the Russian public opinion will accept it. They've done that. They've done that. They've acted very sensibly, very intelligently in Syria, and they've been able to put a brake onto the Western designs in Syria so far. Every single step they've taken so far in Syria has been very intelligent. And I have to sit back in wonder and amazement at the maturity and the intelligence of Russian foreign policy. I've learned myself new things about diplomacy by just watching the Russian foreign minister, how he operates, and how Putin is operating, yes. So I don't think that the Russians are going to be afraid or scared of continuing their intelligent policy. They cannot allow ISIS or the Islamic State, they cannot allow it to destabilize Russia. No. They cannot allow it to succeed to such an extent as to be able to bring about a situation in Russia which would cause instability. No. And they have ISIS on the run now. They have ISIS on the run. And in bringing about this, forcing the Turkish government to apologize, and now restoring normal relations with Turkey, the Russians are now in a stronger position because Turkey would not want to get back again in the bad books of Russia. No, it'll make Turkey look like a fool. Turkey is already looking like a big fool because they said they'll never apologize, and now they've apologized. Yeah. So I think that the Russian foreign policy in Syria is correct, and it is likely to continue on course until the Western world decides we've had enough, and we may have some big false flag to try to provoke a war.
Not too distant from the discussion of Syria is the rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran. They seem to be fighting proxy wars in many countries. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, probably more. Bahrain. Where is this leading to? It's the Muslim world tearing itself apart, is it not?
I don't consider Saudi Arabia to be a part of my Muslim world. No. For those who can't see and who do not turn to the Quran for guidance, they may consider the Saudi regime to be a part of the Muslim world. I don't. The Quran is very plain and very clear. And those who have been listening to me and reading my eschatology would know that the Quran has spoken about an alliance of Christians and Jews that the Quran anticipates will come into being. That Judeo-Christian alliance has today come into being. It's the Zionist Judeo-Christian alliance. And the Quran has prohibited Muslims, from maintaining friendship and alliance with that Judeo-Christian alliance. That Judeo-Christian alliance controls power in Washington, in London, in Paris, in Bonn. NATO is its military arm, yes. And the Saudis are part and parcel of that alliance. The Saudis are their shoeshine boys. The Quran speaks and speaks very plainly and clearly and says, whosoever from amongst you Muslims turn to them with friendship and alliance. And you travel to Washington to play golf with Barack Obama. Those Muslims who maintain that kind of a relationship with our Judeo-Christian alliance, which today is led by Washington, you no longer belong to the world of Islam. You've left the world of Islam. So it's not that the Saudis and the Iranians are at loggerheads with each other and that shows a divided world of Islam. It's not. The Saudis no longer belong to the world of Islam. The Saudi people, yes, but not the regime. No. The regime has left Islam. I think the regime is acting on behalf of NATO, on behalf of the Zionist alliance, in its policies towards Iran. the mastermind which wants to deliver to Israel the status of ruling state in the world, that mastermind needs to provoke Sunni Shia civil war in the House of Islam. And Sunni Shia civil war, if it does take place, will not only present the worst possible image of Islam to the world, but also weaken the world of Islam to resist Israeli oppression. What the Saudis are doing is they are fanning the flames of Sunni Shia civil war. They're doing every single thing they can possibly do to bring about Sunni Shia civil war. The Iranians were not too pleased with me when I said that so long as the Shah ruled over Iran, Sunni Shia civil war in the House of Islam was not possible. Not possible. In order for that larger objective to be realized of Sunni Shia civil war in the world of Islam in the end time, it was necessary to get rid of the Shah and bring a Shia regime to replace him. And so when the revolution took place in Iran, while the Western world were publicly, overtly opposing it, I've argued that they were secretly welcoming it. And that didn't go down too well in Iran.
No.
That didn't go down too well in Iran, no, but it's the truth. And what the Saudis are now doing is fanning the flames of Sunni Shia civil war. And the one thing that will probably bring success, provoke a Sunni Shia civil war, is if the Saudis could do something, or the Zionists could do something, which will provoke Iran into attacking the Arabian Peninsula. What could that be? It could be an Israeli launch an aerial attack on Iran's nuclear installations. Yeah. And then Iran responds by launching an attack on Bahrain. Anything like that. Once the Iranians move across the water to attack the Arabian Peninsula, you're going to have Sunni Shia civil war. So you have to understand Saudi foreign policy now with respect to Iran based on this long-term objective of trying to provoke Sunni Shia civil war in the House of Islam. Because I've understood that policy, I'm doing exactly the opposite. And there are others who support me in this, that we say this is the moment in time more important than ever before to try to build and sustain Sunni Shia solidarity.
Saudi Arabia is virtually financing Egypt, I believe. Sisi, I think, has assisted in the war on Yemen, in the blockade. He seems to be preaching a kind of secularism, Sisi. Would that be correct?
I am not that familiar with what is going on in Egypt, except to say that if the Ikhwan al-Muslimun was bad, if they made terrible mistakes, if they made unforgivable mistakes, if their mistakes were so atrocious that I wish Ikhwan could never rule over Egypt again, if this is true, then I say Sisi is worse than Ikhwan. The imperative for Egypt at this time is to unite the people, because there's a coming war when Israel is going to try to take the eastern delta of Egypt, which is the breadbasket of Egypt. Israel needs to take physical control of the eastern delta, because someone wrote into the Torah, I don't know who did it, but he had a very evil pen with which he did it. Somebody wrote into the Torah that the Holy Land extends from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. And because that fellow wrote that stuff into the Torah, we're now faced with this predicament. that Israel cannot have credentials, adequate credentials, as the holy state of Israel unless it expands its territorial frontiers to encompass the Eastern Delta. So there is a war that's coming. And that's why NATO is in Libya. So when the war comes, Egypt can be attacked from both sides. I gave this analysis a few years ago, yes. So if you understand what is coming for Egypt, then the intelligent thing, the sensible thing would be to adopt a policy in governing over Egypt that would unite the country. Ikhwan didn't have that sense in their head. They were foolish. This is polite language I'm using. I'm so angry with them. And they divided Egypt as Egypt had never been divided before, over constitution. The example of the Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessings be upon him, is that he used the constitution to unite the people. And they used the constitution to divide the people. The opposite to what the Prophet did. And so when Ikhwan divided Egypt as Egypt had never been divided before, they were total failure. Well, if Egypt was divided by Ikhwan, today Egypt is being destroyed by Sisi, because the division of Egypt now is becoming permanent. What the Algerian armed forces did in Algeria, Sisi is doing an even worse than what the Algeria did. Yeah. I can't comment on the secular policies of Sisi, but I can comment on the disastrous mistake that they're making in dividing Egypt as Egypt has never been divided before, at a time when the opposite policy should be adopted to unite Egypt to prepare for the coming war on Egypt.
And Ikhwan is the Muslim Brotherhood, for the viewers that don't know.
Yes, the Muslim Brotherhood, yeah.
It's extraordinary how close the relationship is between Sisi and Russia. Russia is sending the most advanced weapons to Sisi's military.
It's called the politics of opportunism. Russia sees no reason why they should not exploit an opportunity. The Egyptian armed forces is in a fix at the time, and they turned to Russia, and Russia said, "Why not? We can maintain a friendly relationship with you." I call it the politics of opportunism. It does not indicate an alliance. No, it's just an opportunistic policy adopted by both parties.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, very advanced weaponry, the most advanced weapons they're sending on occasion. Sheikh Imran, I don't know what else to ask you. Are there any topics?
You can compare Russia's foreign policy towards Egypt with Russia's foreign policy towards Syria and Iran. In the case of Syria and Iran, you can clearly see that this is an alliance. The Russians are building an alliance with Iran. They don't want Iran to get out of their grip and go over to the Western camp. No. So they do everything they can do to keep Iran in an alliance with them. And similarly with Syria, even if it meant Russian military intervention in Syria, they will do it. But with Egypt, it's different. It is exploiting an opportunity which presented itself when Morsi was overthrown. Morsi was advocating the Egyptians going and joining the bogus jihad in Syria. Yeah, he opened the doors of Egypt like a fool. The fool that he is, opened the doors of Egypt so that Egyptians could go and join the bogus Yankee jihad in Syria against the Syrian regime. And this was bad news for the Russians. So when Morsi was overthrown and Sisi took over and he turned towards Russia in a friendly way, why not? Why not exploit this opportunity? This is the basis of the relationship between Russia and Syria Egypt at the moment. It is exploiting an opportunity, that's all. It's not an alliance.
Thank you for the clarity.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Harris. I would like to use the opportunity to share with you and with your viewing audience that there's a part of my life which is private, and that's my dreams. And I hardly ever reveal my dreams to public. I never use it for my analytical work and so on. But on this occasion, I have to reveal that I've had 8 dreams, 8 so far, over the last less than 2 years of nuclear war. It is amazing that the dreams keep on repeating themselves, okay? 8 dreams in less than 2 years on nuclear war. And so I fear, I hope I'm wrong. I would be very happy if I'm wrong, but I fear that nuclear war is going to be provoked soon. If Donald Trump were to be elected as President of the United States, it creates a problem for NATO to provoke nuclear war with Russia, because Trump is on record as saying that he sees no reason why the United States should have an antagonistic relationship with Russia. And so I want to share with you that my fear is that they may wish to use this period of time they have between now and November the 4th to try to provoke war with Russia. Their favorite weapon, of course, is a false flag terrorist attack. They've used this weapon so often now, it's sickening. It's sickening. And yet there are people who have eyes and cannot see, or people who have no backbones except a backbone made of recycled paper, and continue to accept the official explanation of all the terrorist acts. So don't be surprised if we have another monstrous, major false flag terrorist attack, and this time it'll be used to provoke war with Russia, which I don't know how soon would escalate into nuclear war. If it does, at the beginning, well, it won't take less than an hour, I think, before we see most of the world in ashes. How do we prepare for nuclear war? When we know it's coming, it's just a matter of time. Piero San Giorgio and myself, we had a joint seminar in Geneva. It was in the month of April, I think, on preparing for nuclear war. And we warned the people, Piero in particular, that if you detonate a nuclear weapon in the sky, then all your electronic equipment, everything will stop working for large area. So dependence on electronic devices is something that we should not allow ourselves to be entrapped in at this time. Try to disengage yourself so you can survive without electronic appliances. And also stock up on food and stock up on water. You wouldn't want to keep water stored in glass containers. You wouldn't want to keep it stored in plastic containers. And it might be too expensive to store it in metal containers. So then what do? The answer is, for thousands of years, people have used earthen goblets for storage of water. And these are cheap. And they store the water better than other containers. Yeah. So my message to the people who are viewing this video in different parts of the world is, my advice is, do please store food and water. And finally, that you should not allow yourself to become entrapped and imprisoned in the digital and electronic monetary system that's coming. And the way to preserve yourself from that prison of financial Guantanamo, I call it, is to have some silver coins and to have some gold coins. And with that, with silver and gold coins, you could still survive. Then, of course, there's barter. the Indonesian farmers. I don't know when will the farmers in Indonesia be taught? Who will teach them? When will they be taught? That don't sell your rice for rupees. And tomorrow don't sell your rice for electronic money. You've been ripped off. Rather, use your rice itself as money. This is not barter. No. You take rice and you monetize the rice. Of course, it'll be the rice in the paddy. Once you remove the skin from the rice, then the lifespan becomes less, and the rice become vulnerable to weevils and so on. But if you keep the rice grain in the paddy, in the skin, it'll last longer. So these are the ways in which you can prepare yourself for the coming nuclear war. I have just completed my book on methodology for the study of the Quran. Can you give me a copy, please? And it is being translated into French. It's being translated into Urdu, into Russian, and other languages. But it's available in English here. Methodology for study of the Quran. My online bookstore, INHosein.com, crashed, and it should be rebuilt soon. But in the meantime, those who want to get this book can contact me by email. And I'm working on my book on Dajjal. It's a very difficult book to write, extremely difficult. And I may take a couple more months to be able to finish it. But I hope that you and others would excuse me if during this period of time I don't have the time. I normally would to respond to emails. You kindly excuse me so I can try to finish my book on Dajjal, the false Messiah, which when it is finished, the primary target audience will be the world of Islam and the world of Orthodox Christianity, but also the world of Judaism, and also for a man named Morris, who I hope will read my books.
Now, you said that people can email you. What is your email address?
The email is inhosein@hotmail.com, inhosein@hotmail.com. So until the bookstore is restored, you can send your request to me by email. And you don't have to pay when we send the order to you and you receive it, only then do you pay. That's my way of doing business.
We can trust each other.
Yeah, yeah.
People are trustworthy. Well, will we call it a day?
Yes, and I hope next time I meet you, we talk, you can have a beard, Morris.
Have a beard? I don't shave, but okay.
Yes, I'd love to see you with a beard, Morris.
Maybe. It's difficult to grow.